I know that at the heart of this country is injustice towards black people and poor people, and that they target people in prominent positions, that they don't target white people. So to me, it's a matter of racial justice. That's the bottom line.
And with specifically the R. Kelly case, do you think him speaking out is good or bad?
I think him speaking out is good. I think that once you are convicted of a crime in this country, the only way you get out of prison is either a gubernatorial pardon if it's at the local level, a presidential pardon if it's at the federal level, or protest. And the examples of this would be the Free Huey and Free Angela movements during the 1960s and 1970s.
And even the George Floyd stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the protests, I mean, it's a shame that the life of a black person was sacrificed, but it partially solidified, black protest over police brutality in the United States. Or Trayvon Martin's death gave life to the Black Lives Matter movement. So I think that people underestimate the power of the people in getting justice in this country. And the only way you can do that is through organized protests.
And that's something you do outside of a lawyer and what the lawyer is doing inside the courtroom.
Yeah, absolutely. Because lawyers have to work inside the law. And who was it? George Carlin, who once said, no, it wasn't George Carlin. It was somebody else. I got to figure out who it was. Lenny Bruce, I think it was. It said there is justice when there is no justice in the halls of justice. Justice must be in the streets. And people forget, I mean, black people especially, we forget the only way we got the Civil Rights Bill passed, 60 years ago, even though it's being eroded now, as well as the Voting Rights Bill, is through street protests. I mean, Dr. King led massive demonstrations on injustice. And we got to do the same thing today with our individual people who are in prison and other places.
And that's something you do without the lawyer's consent, because it's your right as the American people.
Right, under the First Amendment of the Constitution, the people have a right to free speech, and that includes protest. Now, we know right now there's an attempt to suppress the free speech of black people, but there's always been an attempt at that. And so I encourage people, without the consent of their lawyers, to involve this, mass movements to free people who we think are innocent.
And so Robert speaking, you feel, was him using his best weapon?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, the American people oftentimes have short memories. And I think political prisoners and other prisoners who have been unjustly accused, what they have to do is keep their voices in front of the public. And if they keep their voices in front of the public and by any means necessary, as Malcolm said, I think that their cases, can stay relevant in the public's mind.
And to activate people as well.
Exactly. I think the average person doesn't know what happens in prison psychologically. I mean, there have been black folk who have been in prison for years, unjustly. A good example is the late Eddie Conway here in Maryland, where I live. And he was in prison for 41 years, I believe. It was 40-something years. And he was innocent of a crime. And, we see this every day about people being released from prison, especially black people who have been accused of crimes they did not commit.
Even if you're convicted?
Yes. I mean, Eddie was convicted of murder, and he had nothing to do with the murder. We see Mumia Abu-Jamal is innocent. And people say, well, we've got evidence, and the evidence, the movie which was based on a true story, Just Mercy, just a year or so ago, with Michael B. Jordan. He got a person free who had been accused of a crime he didn't commit. So this is common, especially among black people. God knows how many black people have been executed who have been innocent. So it's just, we have to continue to protest even after a conviction.
And with or without the lawyer's consent or knowledge.
Right. You don't have to, you don't, look, the right to protest is guaranteed under the Constitution of the United States. And that's with or with. One person can protest. They don't have to get permission from any. That's free speech.
But that's not hurting what the lawyer is doing, correct?
No, not at all. Not at all. If anything, it'll help the lawyer.
Yeah, because it's outside of the halls of justice, like you said.
Exactly.
And they protested with Mandela, right?
Right. I mean, the only way Mandela was released after 27 years was a global protest. It's probably one of the biggest protests that was ever mounted with a person that was in prison. And not only did he get out, but as you know, he became president of South Africa, the first black president of a country that had unjustly incarcerated him. So I think that you just have to do it. And the quote, I wanted to get this quote straight. The quote by Lenny Bruce, it says, "In the halls of justice, the only justice is in the halls." People outside of the courtroom, outside of the lawyers, outside of the judges and the prosecutors, they have to say, we are just as involved with the case, with justice, as the lawyers are. They work hand in hand.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And Robert should be doing everything within his own power to secure his freedom.
Absolutely. Again, people have short memories. While Angela Davis's lawyer was working with Angela to get her out of jail and not get her convicted, people were protesting all over this country. The same with Huey Newton. He was in jail and people visited him. James Baldwin visited Angela Davis. And so what did James Baldwin say about Angela Davis when she was in prison and protest? He said, how did he put that? He said, if they come for you in the morning, they will be coming for us at night. And that's what James Baldwin felt. I think that if we don't help those and we don't help ourselves who are incarcerated unjustly, they will eventually come for us. And I believe that.
So we as U.S. citizens must do it. Robert must use his voice, and the lawyer does their part. Everybody must do their part.
Everybody's got to be, like I said, if in the halls of justice, the only justice is in the halls. I mean, that's what Lenny Bruce said when he was convicted. So we've got to believe that stuff, and we got to practice.
And you've been protesting for how many years?
I mean, various things. I think that, if I'm not mistaken, the first time I protested was the night that Dr. King was assassinated. That was in 1968. So how many years ago is that? 55 years ago? So that's well over half of my life. But it's been various causes. I remember when Cesar Chavez in 1969, when Cesar Chavez told people to boycott grapes, and we literally boycotted grape, eating grape juice, grapefruit, whatever. Well, not grapefruit, but
anything with grapes, yeah.
Anything that was grape, because they were mistreating the farm workers out in California.
Right.
So I think, protest comes in a variety of ways. Protest should make people feel uncomfortable. Protest should make be disruptive. That's what Dr. King did. I mean, he was probably one of the greatest protesters of the 20th century. And look, it got us a lot of things. And now, 50 years later, the Supreme Court is trying to erode those things. But those protests work. What we've got to constantly do is ensure the rights. We can't relax after we win a protest. You got to keep vigilant. And a lot of times we don't do that.
And that comes in the form of marching, using social media, putting flyers out, making calls, writing the Department of Justice, governors, everybody that's in a position to make a decision.
It includes all of that, absolutely.
Okay. So I just wanted to get your input because I know you do that and have done it for decades.
Yeah, getting too old for it sometimes. Yeah, but yeah, I believe that, yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.